What's going on with Sony PlayStation? We're going to talk a little bit about this awful business practice that's showing up in the news and why this is so important for you, the average business owner. Hey, my name is Blake Benz. I'm the host of the Good Advice Podcast, and I appreciate you tuning in today. Let's dive in right after we hear a word from a business that sponsored today's episode. There's one single piece of advice that I give to business owners who are ready to scale their business drastically. And that's knowing exactly what you need to hand off so that you can continue focusing on what you're an expert in. It amazes me when I talk to business owners who are doing their own bookkeeping and tax prep, and worse, that they're going through all this paperwork at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, even midnight, slaving away trying to make sense of all of the numbers for their business. Business owners who are making it happen have already figured out that you can't do it all yourself. That's why I recommend Steve Lay with Equity Business Solutions. Not only is he an expert in bookkeeping and tax prep, but what I love about Steve is that he'll sit down with you and help you make sense of the value of your business beyond just reading a spreadsheet. You'll be able to make better decisions, and more importantly, you're going to save yourself the crucial time you would have spent going through QuickBooks or an Excel spreadsheet or whatever it is that keeps us up late at night. So save yourself some time and some money by giving Steve Lay a call at Equity Business Solutions, and he'll show you the value beyond your numbers. Go to equitybusinesssolutionsllc.com to find out more. All right, so I want to talk about what in the world? What's going on with Sony PlayStation? What an interesting headline. And I'm going to talk about what's going on here, why it matters, why it's so important, and why you should care about it, whether you're a business owner or just the average consumer. This kind of decision is horribly toxic, and it affects all of us. And this kind of practice is, frankly, really scummy. It's really crummy. I don't like it at all. So we're going to talk about it on the show today. First of all, hope everyone's doing well. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. If you're a first-time listener, I appreciate you moseying over to our neck of the woods. We try to talk about what actually matters, what actually works on the show. So we've had a little bit of a hiatus on the podcast over the last couple of weeks. I took a 10-day vacation. It was glorious. It was awesome. We had a great time, had a really fun time with kids, and, fortunately the business continued on without me, so I didn't have to be locked in every day figuring out, what fires to put out. But having said that, I have been thinking about this story. I got a few stories I want to talk about on the show in the coming days, which, by the way, we're going to get back on our production schedule a bit. We've let the production schedule kind of get a little wild, some shenanigans here. That's not ideal, but we got a few things we're going to talk about. One of them is Sony PlayStation today. We are going to talk about AI data centers, which is a massive part of the conversation. We're going to talk about flock cameras, which is also a massive part of the conversation today. I think all three of these things are important for us as average citizens and people, average business owners. I avoiding in general being a political podcast, which this is not. It's a business podcast. We talk about what matters for your business, but we got some things we got to discuss, got to figure out. Some things that I think are important for us. And without further ado, I want to talk about PlayStation. So here's what basically happened with PlayStation. Man, we have such a wide variety of people who listen to the podcast from all walks of life, different generations. So let's just get kind of a baseline here. Which is not to insult or treat anyone as if they're stupid. But, Sony PlayStation, video game maker, they make the PlayStation console. I played the PlayStation 2 as a kid. Right now they have the PlayStation 5. You've heard of an Xbox probably. These things are basically the same thing. Which, by the way, over time, as a game console is out in the world to purchase, over time, you get price reductions. Well, not the case. Both Xbox and Sony have increased their prices. They both said, hey, because of hardware costs, specifically RAM, because of these AI data centers that's eating up all of the important hardware we need. These things are no longer profitable, and so we have to increase the prices of our consoles. I mean, it's just bonkers. It's just insane. This is something so unheard of, so unprecedented. But alas, it's not the focus of today's podcast episode. I just think, these things don't offer any more than they did 4, 5, 6 years ago. And you know what? I think this is just a valuable segue just for a moment. You have companies like Netflix that have increased their subscription price 30% in the last year, 2 years? And I have to wonder, has the value increased? You have these large organizations, these large companies that increase the cost of their goods without really changing the value factor too much. You compare that to other experiences you buy, things that you spend money on where the value is enormous, where you kind of wonder, how could this be profitable for them? They're giving us so much. And I think that's just an important insight for us as business owners to be thinking about, what do I offer? What does someone get when they buy from me? It doesn't mean that you're the cheapest price on the block, but it does mean a genuine conversation on, what does someone actually get? What's the experience like? Is it a great experience? Is it a premium experience? And these are all things that, we've walked through with our customers in terms of, the start of the buying journey all the way through, the actual delivering of services or goods. How do you really give someone that great experience? But for these larger businesses, I don't know. I think it's just kind of wild. Prices are going up and things are the same. It's kind of like you go to Taco Bell, which, apparently I'm seeing this news story about explosive diarrhea that is just trending across the United States. And I saw Taco Bell got blamed for it. And then I think Taco Bell said, hey, it's not us. But I will say Taco Bell, I mean, you look at the prices today versus 10 years ago. Good Lord, I'm going to spend $12 on a burrito, and the beans come in a freezer Ziploc bag that get dropped in a pool of boiling water. The meat is not, what is it? A certain percentage of it is actually ground beef. I mean, like, what are we doing here? And then the prices are just going up like crazy. It's a wild world. It is a wild world, which means you as the business owner have a real, genuine opportunity. You have a real opportunity to offer something meaningful, to offer something great. And the important thing is you don't have to have the highest price to make good money. You don't have to do something that literally no one else is doing to make good money. I'm just saying the opportunities are literally endless. They're literally endless. I mean, they really, truly are. But so Sony PlayStation announced that they are not going to be shipping games anymore as a physical CD. And again, without insulting anyone, I mean, maybe when you were a kid, you had the Nintendo cartridge. Do you guys remember, by the way, when like the cartridge wouldn't work and you pop it out and like blow into the bottom of the cartridge? I have no idea. These things that are like urban legends, I guess, in terms of like, does it actually work? Does it make a difference? I'm also like kind of interested in these things that become like a prolific thing without, like, there was no commercial that taught you to do this, and yet we all knew to do it, right? But so you had the Nintendo cartridges or Game Boy cartridges, and then PlayStation had CDs, and then Xbox also had CDs. But so you go and you buy a game, and it comes like in what looks like a little DVD box, and it's a CD, goes into your console. Well, maybe with the PlayStation 4, I don't know like when this came about, but eventually these companies started shipping, started selling digital copies. So you go buy a game and they give you a code. You buy it on Amazon, you get an email with like a digital code, and you don't have to you never actually get a physical product. You don't get anything in the mail. You don't go to the store. You get a code and you redeem it online on like the PlayStation Store or on Steam, which is another marketplace basically. And you download the game and you play it. Now you may be thinking, well, what's the big deal? Which there's like a whole nother conversation here, by the way, of like whenever digital versions became the norm, you would think because a company is no longer shipping and producing physical copies that the digital version would be cheaper. Alas, how silly of you. How foolish of you to think so cleanly about your customers, right? And it's just funny to me. Maybe I'm feeling a little spicy today, a little cynical. I just think it's interesting that where you can cut costs, it seems like you'd have an opportunity to deliver a boon to your customers. And yet, of course not. That's not what happens. And maybe it's because, like server costs or like maintaining their online store. I don't know what the reason is, but all this to say, if you want to buy a digital version, heck, I think even a digital version might be more expensive. I'd have to double check, but it costs the same for the most part, I think. So then you had the Sony PlayStation selling a diskless drive version and then one that had the disc. I'm not really too interested in like the differences between those. I don't know what sold more. I don't really know what people thought about it, cared about it, In my mind, I guess it's kind of like you guys remember when Apple stopped selling the phones with the headphone jack? I mean, it's kind of the same conversation in my mind in the sense of like, it's great to have it. I want to have it. I think it's important to have it, but if it doesn't have it, I'm not really going to think too much about it. So like the console having the disk drive versus not, I don't know. I don't know how important it is. But point being, what I want to get to and talk about is this concept of ownership today. I'm really concerned with the premise of ownership and how companies do not seem interested in providing ownership to the customer who bought what they've paid for. I have noticed, and you probably have as well, a significant trend in subscription services with terms of use policies that are very much the verbiage is around how you don't own the product. You're only agreeing to use the product. I remember I bought a course one time, like a teaching course that said, you agree that you do not own this course. You're merely paying the rights to access to it. And at any time, it can be revoked. And now legally, I don't know I don't know how flimsy this stuff is, but I do think that language is very interesting to me that you're paying for the access to it, the rights to use it. And I don't know. I feel like ownership is this thing that like corporations are realizing, heck, we can make a ton of money paying for getting people to pay for access. We can make a ton of money for people to rent and to, and it's, I guess from like a business concept, it's not like a wild concept in the sense of, buying something and then having people rent to use it. You make money in your sleep. You write off the, what's it called when something loses value over time? Whatever. You know what I'm talking about. You write that off, the depreciation, excuse me. I mean, there's lots of perks to it. I mean, this feels like kind of a central tenet to capitalism, I guess. The issue, though, is that this whole concept of someone owning and renting access, whatever you want to call that, by the way, not everyone calls it renting access, but that whole model, there are some incredibly ugly sides of it. You think about the landlord who doesn't do anything for the property that person's residents live in, and yet they charge a premium for the person who is actually living there. I had a friend of mine who, literally had wires coming out of her wall, and the landlord didn't want to do anything about it. So, this is really less of like a let's let's get on the soapbox about corporate ownership and what have you. And it's more about, I'm just kind of concerned. I really am. I'm concerned about ownership in general. I'm concerned about access to ownership. I guess maybe in a way this is related to the concept of equity. And as you grow into adulthood, what lines of access do you have to increasing your equity and your value beyond like pure cash? Like, what are the actual whether is that a conversation on home prices? Is that a conversation? I don't really know, other than just I think about these things. And it's interesting to me that in the world of video games, which you would think would be such a casual, quintessential hobby for many people, that this difficulty around ownership is continuing to surface. Now, again, you may be listening and being like, well, I don't really get the big deal. I don't get the big deal. Here's what the big deal is. Okay. A man recently sued Microsoft because he had a fully digital library, I guess, a fully digital library of games. I don't know how many games it was. I don't know how much money it was, but he had a full library of all these different games. Well, he gets hacked. He gets hacked, and what Microsoft does is Microsoft shuts down the account. And long story short, Microsoft doesn't just shut down the account. Microsoft deletes the account, deletes all that entire library. So what the man does is, now here's what I'll say. What the average person will do is be mad, swear never to buy from Microsoft again. And, at the random family get together, Microsoft gets brought up, and that person, 5 years down the road retells the story about how they'll never do business with Microsoft again. I think that's the average person. I don't think the average person is going to sue, just because the cost of suing, and more importantly, suing a corporation, right? But this guy sues, and he wins. And what the court basically says is, Microsoft, you have to, first of all, restore the account that this person paid for. And more importantly, you need to pay back damages of whatever the dollar amount was. So this happened. Well, then it happened again with a different person. And then, like I mentioned, PlayStation has been in the news because they announced that after this next year, they're going fully digital. If you want to do games with PlayStation, you have to. And I guess presumably this means their next console, which I'm not going to buy. I just can't imagine the value of $1,000 plus. I mean, undoubtedly, I think it's going to be at that price point. $1,000 plus console. It's just insanity to me. It's absolute insanity to me. But you know what? When I was a kid and I had a Nintendo, I have no idea what that actually costs in terms of like inflation. So whatever. But PlayStation has been in hot water for announcing they're going fully digital. If you want to buy a PlayStation game, be prepared. And I'll just say, by the way, I'm curious if this is going to be like Apple, where Apple takes out the headphone jack. What do the other phone companies do? They follow suit. Now, I do think there was probably some clever PR there. Companies that maybe their latest model had the headphone jack, and they cleverly, even in intending to eventually remove it, put out their PR campaigns to say, the headphone jack's there for our phone. It's all the same disingenuous game that so many companies are playing. But sure enough, like as of today, I don't know who actually has a phone jack. So Apple gets lambasted for this, and yet, sure enough, every company then stops. I mean, they follow suit, right? So right now, Sony PlayStation is the one who's in the conversation about this, but who's to say that, Microsoft will follow suit, Nintendo will follow suit, what have you? I don't know. But point being, what's interesting to me though is PlayStation also mentioned that you do not truly own your library. You don't truly own your library. And in fact, if you become inactive, which I got to be really honest with you, I have not played a PlayStation game. I mean, it's got to be years at this point. Like, I'm just trying to think about this for a second. I have like a distinct memory of when my daughter was like 2 years old, maybe. So I guess maybe it's been 3 or 4 years. So I mean, we use it for Netflix. Wait, I don't have Netflix. We use it for Disney Plus, excuse me. But we don't like log in to play a game on it. So would that mean that like the games I bought forever ago, would they just be deleted? Would they disappear? Would they time out? Like, these are all questions I wonder. I'm like, dude, am I going to have to, is my life of busyness going to need a calendar reminder? You know what this actually reminds me of? Oh my gosh, this is like such a throwback. This is a deep podcast lore drop. Okay, so geez, maybe 30 years ago, 20 years ago, it would have been probably about 20, 25 years ago, there was a game called Diablo 2, which was just a great game I played when I was a kid. But the thing about Diablo 2 was you had to log in, I think it was like every 3 months or every 6 months, or your characters would be deleted, which at the time, 20, 30 years ago, there was some reason for that. And I remember this is, before iPhones. It didn't have calendar reminders, but I remember having to keep like a mental calendar of, have I logged in, to refresh the timer? And then the pain of realizing, no, it's all deleted, Well, this is a game. I mean, my brother owned the game. I don't know what it cost back then. This is a game that cost me nothing. Compare this to like PlayStation games today. How much are games today? Like, I saw a news story that Nintendo's Switch games were like $80. Again, I just assume that every company is going to follow suit at this price point, but that's a lot of money for a video game. So imagine you buy, I don't know, 10 video games over 5 years. I don't really know the pacing of this, but just assume for the sake of example that 10 games get bought over 5 years, and then you stop playing it or you stop logging in. And then Sony has the gall to say, after 3 years of inactivity, we have the right to delete your account. Are you insane? See, this is like what really annoys me is there's like no sense of, I genuinely feel like this is an ethical concern. Like, I genuinely feel like a company that operates this way is, I mean, immoral is such like a, I don't think there's like a hell for Sony executives. But I do think, I just wonder, like, conscience. Like, where's the conscience? Like, where is the sense of what we owe to each other? Like, maybe I'm just an idiot. You guys those of you who hate the podcast, which I do have, a hate listener here or there, me saying that, you're probably like, yeah, you are an idiot. And so, like, yeah, maybe I'm clueless. I don't know. But I just can't imagine having that level of lack of conscience towards my customers. I have sold digital content to people in terms of, like, I had a podcast training class. I've had just like various things like that. And I remember for one customer, the whole class was in a Google Drive. And I mean, I went out of my way to make sure that that person could keep that forever. And not that it was really that good and they'd want to, but I set it up in a way where I was like, hey, this is never going to go anywhere. This is going to be here forever. The Google Drive will always be there, but also please download it. Hey, let me know if you have any issue. Like, it just seemed like the person paid for it and I should make sure they have continued access to it. Maybe that's an insane idea. I don't know. But I will say, the more I read about these insane corporate stories, I got to tell you, the more I'm reminded about the opportunity you have as a small business owner. Seriously, the opportunities are endless. They're endless. I mean, geez, I just increased prices on our hosting plan, and I emailed my customers who I already had and said, "Hey, your price is not going to go up. You might see that the price went up. Your price is staying the same. It's always going to be the same, until I mean, if the people who I pay hosting for, if they keep raising their prices, which they keep doing, I mean, seriously, but if they keep raising their prices to the point where I'm losing money, then I'll probably say, hey, I'm like, this is insane. I'm going to have to raise the prices. But I literally said, hey, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit less money. It's fine. I just appreciate your business. Thank you. Now, is someone going to run to social media and like, wow, this company that does my hosting, they're amazing? Probably not. Like, I don't really think I don't think you do these things because there's some like prolific accolade or post or award or something you get for doing it. You do these things because it's the right thing to do. Like that is all there is to it. I'm going to tell a story, and I'm going to talk about this as a separate episode at some point, but I was filling up my tank at a Quick Trip, and I walked inside to get a cup of coffee, and the cashier, I was paying for the cup of coffee, and she said, "Hey, you're good." And I said, "Well, what do you mean I'm good?" And she goes, "You're good. Don't worry about it." And like, it's a cup of coffee. It's not a big deal. But it really made an impact for me. Like I got in the car, I was talking to my wife, and I was like, that person made my day. I am a fan. I'm a fan. I'm a Quick Trip fan. That person didn't have to, but for whatever reason, the $2.60 or $3, I don't know how much a cup of coffee is, whatever the price is, she said, "Hey, you're good." I don't know why she did it for me. Maybe because I had my little minions who were just like screaming endlessly, and she probably felt bad for me and was like, "You need this." But like, this is a negative ROI for the business. Like they lost money. I took their coffee and they didn't get anything, I mean, they got gas, right? Gas money. But I think what I'm getting at is, as a business owner, you have so many opportunities to just blow away your customers, to wow your customers. And frankly, a lot of them are going to cost you money. You're not going to make money on them. I mean, the little gifts and things that I've bought customers and things that I've done, it's never been like tied to a sale. I just try to do the right thing for my customers. And I don't always do a great job with it. And there's times that because it's not like process driven, I don't have like a calendar reminder on Monday to like, okay, write a thank you card. Like it's just genuine as I think about my customers, and I think, man, I want to reach out to that customer and tell them how much I appreciate them. Just happens. There naturally are times where I think of a customer and I think, man, shoot, I really need to reach out to that customer and let them know I appreciate them. And not because there's a re-up coming at the end of the week, but because I want them to know, hey, I appreciate you. Thank you for doing business with me. So point being, you have to understand that your customers, they are getting totally covered up in the insanity of corporations, in the insanity of price increases, in the insanity of reduced value and weird decisions and things that are meant to squeeze you and get out that next dollar and what have you. So for you as a business owner, my gosh, just like doing business as a normal person with a soul, and you're going to go farther. Anyway, I've talked enough about this. I think you get the point. Hey, if you like this stuff today, you got a story of your own about corporations that have just been insane. Want to hear about the story so I can talk about it on the podcast? See me an email, blake@goodadvicemarketing.com. And of course, if you want to support the podcast, you can always do that on our Patreon, patreon.com/goodadvice. Hey, I appreciate you. That's today's good advice. We'll see you.